Fala aí, tudo bem com você? Beleza? É com muita honra que hoje a gente tem mais uma edição do Conexão USA. Estou aqui com o meu fiel parceiro Rodrigo Teixeira e com uma presença internacional. Diretamente de San Antonio, no Texas, Mr. Marlon Sanders, o homem do The Amazing Formula. E ele gentilmente cedeu um pouquinho aqui do seu espaço para que a gente consiga falar muito sobre marketing. E aí, Rodrigo, como é que você está?
E aí, Fernandão, tudo bem, cara? Mais um episódio aqui do nosso projeto que está sendo muito bacana. Acho que quem vai assistir aqui vai conhecer um pouco também da sua história, como que você começou, tendo sucesso de verdade na internet. Você fala muito sobre o Marlon com muito respeito, que o conteúdo dele te trouxe também muita clareza na hora de você conseguir ter realmente êxito nas suas coisas. E eu acho que para mim vai ser também uma experiência muito bacana, até para poder conversar com um cara que já tem o quê? 30, 40 anos de experiência no marketing em geral e agora aplicado ao digital, referência do que a gente vai ser daqui a uns aninhos, né, Fernandão?
Com certeza. Hello, Mr. Marlon. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you, Fernando?
I'm fine. I'm really happy to receive you here. After so many years, I met you the first time in 2016 in Marketing Mayhem. And I was just in the beginning. And after read your book, I became an internet millionaire. So I want to here to say thank you too.
Well, Marlon, before we get started, I just want to say publicly thank you very much for your time. It's a huge honor and a privilege to have you here with us and our audience in Brazil. I talk a lot about something I call evergreen marketing or holistic marketing, marketing that is applied in the fundamentals and the basics that people like you especially have been doing for many, many years, and it's just applied on the internet and the digital space. So it's one of the things that I really value is the fundamentals of marketing, of direct response marketing. So it's a huge honor and a privilege for me to have somebody like you with such experience and such vast repertoire of products and knowledge in so many areas of the fundamentals of marketing the way it should be. So thank you very much for your time. And like Fernando said, if you could just tell us a little bit about how you got started in this whole thing, maybe going way back and then applied today to the digital space and affiliate marketing, if you don't mind.
Well, I originally got started in 1978. I read there was a full page ad that I responded to, and it was about Ohio man finds 7-step system to escape the great American rat race. And so I think we lost Rodrigo's video there. But anyway, I purchased that book, and it had a chapter in it about this guy named Gary Halbert. And I didn't know a lot about Gary, but then later on I had the opportunity to buy some other things by Gary, and it talked about this business that we're in, the direct response business. So I started learning copywriting and all of that. I wanted to be a copywriter, and it was a very long road, but eventually I became a copywriter, and by chance I became a copywriter for a guy in Dallas, Texas, who worked with Gary Halbert and spoke at his seminars and he was a guru, so he spoke at a bunch of these marketing seminars and so forth. And through that company, then I met other people, and we did 120 seminars around the world, and I launched some products, and then I had a product named Amazing Formula, and it hit real big. And that was in 1997, I think, when I did that. And then we just started. I'm a believer in a cookie cutter. So I was probably or arguably the first person to roll out 100% digitally delivered ebook using an affiliate program on modern day, not on BBB boards or DOS or something, but like the current modern model. And so I just got that model rolling, and I just kept rolling out products. And then later I did a line of products called Dashboards, which was a unique differentiated product. And so if there's any takeaway, people don't like really hearing backstories that much, but if there's a takeaway for anyone, it's number one, you need to learn to write copy. And number two, when you get a marketing system that works, whether it's for your own products or for affiliate products, it's so hard to just get your one system down. So get like one system down and then just keep repeating it as much as you can, like a cookie cutter, because that's where your leverage is.
Marlon, if you don't mind, the way I kind of like to conduct interviews or these talks that we have is just, going on top of things that you say. So I'm going to interrupt you. I apologize in advance if
No,
you
that's
feel
fine.
any moment you want to interrupt me as well. One of the things that you said, 1997, 1996 is when you launched that amazing formula. And that's something that Fernando launched here in Brazil with you. And it was a huge success. And it's something that people don't really understand how important the basics are. And it's stuff that you've been doing since then that you put in that product that still works to this day.
Yeah.
So that's what I say about the importance of you understanding the fundamentals and the basics. And with that in mind, I know it's a little bit off topic here, but about what Fernando sent you, but most people don't know that, if you don't mind telling the story about Jeff Walker and the product launch formula and Érico Rocha. I think there's some story there about you calling Jeff Walker and saying, look, this guy wants to launch your product in Brazil. Is that true? Or is that something that's myth that we've heard about here in
No,
Brazil?
I remember that. I knew Jeff from when we did some of the first marketing seminars about internet marketing way back in 97, 98, 99, 2000. And they were in Boulder, Colorado. And Jeff was on our panels at the time. Really bright guy, super, super nice. So I just known him from way back. And I don't remember exactly why I thought Jeff would be a fit for Fernando. I think just that Jeff had launched in different countries, maybe.
Yeah.
I believe that's what it was. And so, yeah, I called Jeff and, if you know anything about Jeff, super nice guy, extremely bright, always willing to give.
And do you know what happened ever since you made that call here in Brazil with the product launch formula?
No, honestly, I don't. I
Okay.
didn't follow up with Fernando on it.
Érico Rocha was the guy that launched it, and he's outsold product launch formula pretty much everywhere in the world. And it's one of the biggest methods and marketing strategies that we have in Brazil. His event gets around 5,000 to 7,000 people live
Wow.
every year, and he sells millions and millions of product launch formula. So he's gone on to write multiple books. He's probably the biggest well-known reference in digital marketing in Brazil. So we're still a little bit behind the US market. And he's gone on to become probably the most famous digital marketing guru in Brazil because of the product launch formula. Not just because of it, he's gone on to improve it and do different things with it. But since
Customized to your market, right?
Yeah, but he's just taken it to another level. So just so you know what happened since then, and that was about 5 to 7 years ago. So it's just it's interesting to look back, and I think it's great to know the story and the history of our market, and you being part of that history and one of the people that truly pushed the envelope and tried to innovate in things that we do today. And I know that one of the people that learned from you is one of my biggest references, one of my mentors, one of the people that I respect the most in marketing in general, which is Russell Brunson. He's the guy I look to the most, and I know that he was somebody that you taught or he learned from way back then in the beginning. So I think it's great to learn from people that came before us, and it's great to hear that you learned from Gary Halbert, which is somebody that for us is like a legend. It's somebody we'll never know.
Well, back then that, you didn't have a lot of people to learn from.
I know.
You had like Dan Kennedy, and you had Gary and Jay Abraham if you could afford his stuff. And at the time, Dan didn't have all the products like he has now. Back then, he had Dan's model back then was he had books. So he had like the Ultimate Sales Letter book, Ultimate Market, but had a few books, right? No BS. And only like 3 books back then. It wasn't even a lot of books. And if you wanted to learn anything more about Dan, somewhere along there he had his newsletter, but pretty much you had to go to his in-person seminars. And so you didn't have a lot of people to learn from. And the few that did were like, you had to attend seminars. So when Gary had that newsletter that he would mail you, you're like, oh man, this is gold, right? Because it was one of the few things that you had. And of course, he was such a great storyteller.
He's really good.
It was always a delight to read, and he was so darn good at copy. It was always fun to learn. I still send people over to his newsletters. I think anybody learning copy can still learn a lot by reading his old newsletters, boron letters, and all of that stuff. You know?
For sure. Is there any difference in your point of view from the new age marketing, school of marketing? And I don't mean it as a disrespectful term, but old age, I think we have to learn.
I'm proudly old school. I call myself the last ambassador of old school marketing, although I'm probably not, but certainly one of the last, right? And after Corona, I may be the last. I don't know, right? It's thinning out the herd. So, you know, I forget. Wait, what was the topic?
Is there any?
Oh, the old school. Yeah. You know, it's interesting because yes and no, it's both, right? I mean, there are pockets where your old style, old school, long copy sales letters still work extremely well. For example, in investments, that's all Agora does, right? But let's take launches on JVZoo and Warrior Plus. The copy has all the same elements, but they're low price point, so typically it's a lot shorter. And obviously it's a big difference, but it's not. So the sales letters today are usually very graphical, but that's not so different from old school because it just reminds you of magalogs. I mean, really, the highly graphical sales letters we have today are similar in concept to magalogs in that they're very visual, they're eye candy, they're very fast and easy to absorb, right? But now what I think for online marketing and depending on your niche doesn't work as well. So I like to write long form PDFs and I do newsletters and stuff that are long form PDFs. So I kind of train my people to read them. But in general, I think selling someone with a long form PDF, and some copywriters would disagree with me, but I think it's more challenging because it's not real graphical, right? And people are used to all the graphics and all the videos and the short attention spans. Now, if you take the same copy, stick it in maybe a VSL or certainly explain the concepts in a webinar, it'll do very well because it's more, it makes it easier to pay attention to, right? And obviously the things have moved to video sales letters and then to webinars, but I don't know where things are headed now. I mean, the smart people now do it all. In other words, you're really aggressive, smart marketers. They'll do a webinar, transcribe the webinar, put it in an old school style sales letter, right? And then they'll take that sales letter and then they'll make a VSL out of it. They do it all. Nice. If they're really aggressive and have the bandwidth to do it all, right? I mean, that's what you do if you're smarter. Like Agora's letters, they start out as a VSL, but if you go to exit the page, it offers you a transcript, which is basically the sales letter on a page, right?
Marlon, I had sorry to interrupt you, but I have another show that I'm doing on my podcast, which is similar to what we're doing here, but with experts in the Brazilian market space. So people that have done over 7 digits. And I want to understand their mindset, how they think strategically, and what leads to patterns that give you success. And I was talking about this concept because I study the American marketplace. I don't know if you've ever heard of Six-Pack Shortcuts. It was a really big product in 2009.
Yeah, in fact, my friend was the guy that really blew it up. He did all the marketing, Henry Fuentes. He was like the guy behind the scenes who did all the
Henry,
infrastructure.
Yeah.
Oh, you know Henry?
I do.
Wow, my God, Henry is freaking crazy. Wow, what a, like when you meet Henry, you'd almost never guess at some of the incredible, amazing things he's done because he's so happy-go-lucky. You meet him and he's got this magical smile. He doesn't seem like a programmer at all. He doesn't seem like a systems guy, but you know, real systems guy, not just programming, but really understands marketing and can really structure and blow up a business. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know Henry. I knew Henry in 2011. I brought the product to Brazil. it wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be, but it was a huge learning process for me. It's one of the biggest regrets I have is I wasn't a better marketer to make that into what it could have been. But I learned so much from them, and that's how I got started. So everything I know today, I learned from that time with those guys at Six Pack Shortcuts.
Really smart. I mean,
yeah,
just
Henry,
really
Dan,
smart guys and smart
Mike,
marketing.
They were doing things before anybody else was, and people don't really understand that what they were doing 2009, 2011 was really cutting edge in terms of marketing, sales funnel strategies, content marketing, and it's
well, yeah, and you had the two, and I don't want to confuse them because you had Henry and Austin, and they're doing the abs thing, and then you had the weight loss, the huge weight loss offer on ClickBank, which is I don't think that was a 6-pack ab.
No,
yeah, both of those guys just crushed it in the market and still are, as far as I know.
Yeah, they were doing their own thing on their own site. So they went away from ClickBank in 2011, 2010. They were already doing their own thing on their own platform, doing one-click upsells with recurring membership. It was really stuff that today I've seen and talked to people that they say, look, this is what we do today. So I learned a lot. And one of the things that I was talking about was I see it as a cycle. So I've been in the market since 2010, 2011. That's when I really started learning. And I said that I saw a tendency of starting out with sales letter, going into VSL, and then moving into webinars, which it started as tele-seminars back then.
Right.
And I kind of see it going back, people going into moving back to the sales letter, moving back, like you said, using everything. So I see it as a tendency of kind of trying to innovate, and then you go back to what actually used to work back then, which is, traditional copy, sales psychology, consumer psychology. So for me, that's how I kind of see what we're doing here in Brazil. So you said the graphic sales page, and and that's what Fernando and I have been doing really well for the past few years. Nobody can do sales pages like we do, and we learned that from the American marketplace. And people know when we do something, when it's a launch, Fernando does, because it's characteristic, it's signature style of sales pages, sales funnel, and so on. And
very powerful. And I'll tell you a funny story about the doing it all. So I have a friend named Jonathan Mizell, and he's one of them I did 120 seminars with. And he taught, Frank Kern was in his coaching program. Perry Marshall was in his coaching program back in the day, et cetera, right? So I'm talking to Jonathan one day, and he knew John Benson. Jonathan knew everybody. So John gave him like his whole, John has this VSL thing that's incredible. I don't know if you know John Benson or not, but he,
no, I
in fact, some people say he invented the VSL. I don't know who actually invented it, but he certainly took it to like extreme levels, right? And so one day, Jonathan got his program, and I mean, this is not an inexpensive program. I don't know what it is. It's a high-end program. So I'm like, well, Jonathan, what did he teach? And I keep hearing about this John Benson thing and VSL. What does he teach? And he's like, well, dude, he just teaches that you should do it all. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, he literally was, though. It's like every trick in the book he was using, right? And I think that's where we're going, because those markets, Eugene Schwartz talked about how markets become more sophisticated, but so do marketers.
Yeah.
So do marketers. And so I think the people that thrive expand their abilities, and you see it more like a symphony now. In the old days, it was more like a two-step marketing, which I still love and believe in. But today it's transcended that, and the marketing is more like a symphony of things all combining, because they use email, but then there's also text and so many other forms of communication and social media, and all of these things kind of come together.
One of the things that I'm a true believer in is we talked about this with Ron Douglas, I believe, which was, you hear a lot of people like, I see guys coming up that are 19, 20, and they come up with all this that's already, like, everybody's discovered everything here in Brazil. So it's kind of what it is for you guys now. It's starting to be in Brazil. So you see kids that are 19, 18, 20, they come up, they get the formula, they figure it out, and then they do some launch that makes them a lot of cash and then they just explode. And I remember when I started, I was 21 and I had to kind of deny how old I was or try to, make up that I was a little bit older because people didn't really give me any credit because they're like, who's this young kid talking about digital marketing? What is this? When I had to open up my company, I tell a lot of people there was no classification to describe what I sold. There was nothing that existed that classified selling information products. So they had to classify it as selling DVDs and health services.
Yeah.
When I sold Six Pack Shortcuts, this was in 2011. People had no idea about this stuff. And now with coronavirus, everybody's getting pushed into the digital marketing space, especially in Brazil. So it's been a period where sales for digital marketing courses in general has just spiked absurdly during the last month or so.
Well, it is interesting. It is interesting because the younger generations, they grew up with social media. They grew up doing video at age 3 on their iPad or iPhone or something. I don't know. But so you're right. You'll see people. I mean, I've seen a 12-year-old that was pretty freaking incredible. In fact, I'm in a big ticket sales group, and there's a guy in there like 14 years old, I think, closing $8,000 and $10,000 sales over the phone for social media packages.
Really good.
Not kidding. And delivering. I'm like, good gosh, at age 14, I was crying during Lassie.
Yeah.
Right?
One of the things,
oh, Lassie saved them. Oh my God, I'm sorry to say 16th week in a row, Lassie saved them, but I'm still like so happy, right? And then you got these other 14-year-old kids closing $8,000 deals over the phone. I'm like, what happened to the world?
Exactly. But one of the things, do you think that innovation, when these new younger guys, for us, it's kind of weird to say because it's like they're not that much younger than us, but it's still a big difference, 10 years, 8 years. When they try to push the envelope and try to create new strategies, do you think that's going to take them to a better result than doing, the really simple fundamentals, focusing on that? Because I see guys trying to, the whole chat bot, all these new things coming up. And then you go back to the fundamentals and you say, look, those die out, but the fundamentals are the same. So what you guys used to do in teleseminars on the phone, it moved into webinars, and then now it's transitioning to Facebook Lives or live events. It's basically the same format of how to sell, just adapted to the new technology. So that's kind of my school of thought. And I see that as being if I were to start over, focus exactly on that versus looking for the new shiny object. And it's kind of dichotomy because you sell that, you see a lot of people selling the new next best thing, and that's what gets the attention. But then you go back and you're like, okay, so what actually works is doing the fundamentals, writing the copy, understanding the format, understanding the step-by-step, understanding.
Well, it takes both, because it takes both. When I was a copywriter for this company I told you about, right? So the internet it's just come along, and the World Wide Web, it went from the text-based web to the World Wide Web. So early on, won't mention the name, but somebody was a famous and fabulous, really wonderful old school marketer, right? Not Dan Kennedy, but somebody else, although Dan agreed with him completely because Dan was not an early adopter. But he said, oh, this World Wide Web thing, the bandwidth can never handle all of those pictures. This thing is not going to last, right? And so the owner of the company I was at got started in the text-based internet. And he's like, oh, these pictures and everything, they ain't, not even video back then. It was just pictures. There ain't any bandwidth for it. This didn't happen. We're going all in on text. And a year later, he's out of business. Because the text-based internet died fast. The World Wide Web. So it's like, so you have this dichotomy, just exactly what you said, of, is it a bright and shiny object, or is it the next thing? And sometimes it's a real judgment call. Of course, you have to have all the basics and fundamentals, and some of the new people don't have those. Some of them, though, are extremely sharp and pick stuff up really freaking fast, and it amazes me. again, like age 21, I'm selling shoes at a shoe store. Like, you know, attempting to learn to write copy, but really because I didn't have much to learn from. But yeah, and so some of them skip the basics, but some of them pick things up really fast. And I think there's this thing of the new stuff where on the one hand, you stick to basics, but on the other hand, you do kind of have an eye. So there's this famous quote from Cowboy Bebop anime, and it said, it was talking about the main character. It said he had one eye on the past and one eye on the future, right? And so that's kind of how it is, because the past is all the fundamentals, all the skills, right?
Yeah.
But you also got an eye on the future, because you don't want to be the guy going, oh no, the World Wide Web, they ain't bandwidth for it, right? You never want to be that guy. Well, it's not so bad. It's just that you don't want to bet your company like that, because you may be wrong. Now, chatbots, you know, I think they're an additional form of communicating clients. I think it's part of this bigger picture where, because the email is harder to get delivered. I mean, I used to have, you know, extremely high open rate way back, right? And so I think you're going to all of these channels of communication, which means not just chatbots, but push notifications. I'm hoping to see more in terms of desktop notifications. One of my friends is using a program. Again, it's like a push thing that goes on their phone, but you can have your own group, and it goes on their phone, gives them notice. So I think that in the bigger picture, what it really is just trying to find all of these additional ways to communicate to get a message out to clients, because it's getting harder. It's getting harder to get a message to clients. I mean, email still works. Emails are bread and butter, but you can't deny that the delivery rates are going down. It's getting a lot tougher. So you really got to look for these channels and things. So yeah, there's this balance of, is this bright and shiny? Is it going away? Or is this something I need to pay attention? It's a judgment call. Okay. It's just a judgment call. So
can I ask something about my favorite topic now?
Let's hear it.
I really like to talk about product creation. And I saw on your website today, do you have more than 60 products, maybe more? And I want to know, what is the strategy behind so much variety of topics and themes and products?
The strategy behind so many products?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know, so I'll say it this way, is that there's many models for success in business. Like, you know, I have friends who are hardcore big ticket product sellers, and think you're an idiot if you sell anything that's not $10,000 or $8,000. They're like, why would you do that, right? Why not just hunt and kill $8,000 to $10,000, right? And they really look down on info product sellers. On the other hand, I don't look down on people that sell big tickets. I think if that's your thing, right, go for it. If that's really what turns you on, if that's your groove, have at it. Then there are ascension sellers. Now, ascension sellers look at the big ticket, only big ticket sellers like, man, you're missing out 80% because you're just trying to pick the 3% ready to buy now, and you're missing out on the 80% that you can bring in on an ascension funnel, value ladder. Russell Brunson calls it whatever you want to call it. In the old days, we called it ascension. Bring them in on ascension ladder and lead all of those other people up to big tickets that aren't ready to buy them now. You got to educate them. You got to train them, bring them up to the point of buying big. So those are ascension marketers. Now, ascension marketers will look at somebody only selling small and mid tickets and go, oh man, dog, you're missing out. You're missing out. You got to send these people to a mastermind. You got to send them to $10,000 or $25,000 tickets. That's where all the money is, right? You got to send them, right? And there's nothing wrong with that point of view. Like, ascension marketing is a beautiful thing, especially if you like and want to do the big tickets, right? Now, but everybody has a different specialty. You see,
Marlon.
let's talk about the big ticket seller. You're going to sell over the phone or you ain't selling. That's got to be your jam. Like big ticket says, oh man, get me on the phone, dog. I need to be on the phone. I got to talk to people. Get me on the phone. For me, it's like I tried. So I'll tell you a funny story. This is really bad, but there's this documentary made in America. I'm not making this up. I gotta remember the name of it, but it was about pimps. It was a documentary about pimps, and they interviewed them. All it was just interviewing them real life, right? It was no judgment. It was just a slice of life into a subculture. And they're interviewing this pimp, and he's driving the car, and he says, you know, I tried a job. I mean, I really tried. I tried working hard. It just wasn't my thing. Yeah, he's later in jail. But anyway, you know, but a really good looking guy too. He's famous. He was like a famous pimp, right? But point is, like, I tried on the phones. It wasn't my thing. Like after a while, I'm willing to pay money to people to not have to talk to them on the phone, to not have to try to close them, right? Just wasn't my deal. And so at a certain point in ascension marketing, I'm like, no, that's just not real. So I'm a small ticket and a mid ticket seller, depending on how you define price points, right? But that's just what comes naturally and easily to me.
Yeah,
I like doing sales letters. I read voraciously. I own like 5,000 books. You can't see around me, but I own too many. It probably drives my wife freaking crazy. I'm sure it does, in fact. So I don't have any problems with information. I don't have any problems creating new products, right? Like it's an endless well of knowledge. And so for me, small tickets and mid tickets come easy, but even webinar pitches, like some of my, I have friends who are like the best in the world at doing webinars. Like, for example, Matt Basek's one of my friends. You know, he can sit there and do webinars in his sleep and probably sell 25,000, not even be awake, right? That's just his thing. Obviously, Russell Brunson's a webinar guy. And I got Ron Douglas, webinar guy, huge webinar guy, right? Webinar. Like, Marlon, you got to do webinars. I didn't start making any money till you do webinars. You got to do webinars. You can't not do webinars. I'm telling you. I mean, that's Ron, right? God bless Ron. I love Ron. Great freaking guy. Great guy. Love Ron. He'll be doing like, it'll be interesting when these guys are like old and have Alzheimer's and stuff, right? And they're going to be doing webinars about God knows what, right? They'll be doing webinars about, no, today's webinar is why they're really out to get me and coming for me and why my kids hate me and are trying to poison me. But they'll be doing webinars on it, right? They come, right? And they'll be selling something. How to protect your assets from your kids. So webinar sellers. I wish I was great at webinars like Ron. I admire those people. I do webinars, but it's really not my skill. What I do just great is bread and butter products and things that are a little bit innovative, like our dashboards. So you get a system and you just keep cookie cutter. You repeat it over and over if it works for you. And so that's what's always just worked for me and came more easily or natural. That doesn't mean I don't still work at webinars or learning curves or other things or try to sell, but just the phone thing, man. And even webinars, like, I don't know how these people do webinars live. Russell Brunson's like, yeah, I did 100 webinars live before I ever did a recorded one. I'm like, I did a webinar, and after the webinar, I'm like, good God, I'm beat. I'm going to go take a nap.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just like, I find them exhausting.
They are. I was trying to tell you that here between Fernando and I, we have two schools of marketing. So he's more your school and I'm more Russell Brunson. So I'm Ascension marketing guy, and I want to go the whole way because I truly believe in, not leaving out 80%. So it's kind of interesting to see that.
Well, Ascension marketing is how I learned. Ted Nicholas is very old school guy, Ascension marketer, right? Dan Kennedy, Ascension marketer. I mean, they were doing Ascension marketing back in the early 1800s. It is kind of the foundation of our people back then were a lot better marketers than people even have any clue. A lot of people who think they're studs today. No, Those old school marketers, I'm telling you, we're studs today. Man, you have no clue what an unbelievable follow-up sequence Charles Atlas had. Charles Atlas was a total stud marketer, and he had this direct mail sequence that started out on $100 thing, kept sending you more direct mail to stack on bonuses, kept lowering the price point. It was like a 6-month sequence, highly sophisticated, and you can go way back beyond that. I mean, I have a direct mail letter selling people a college correspondence course, basically, equivalent of an MBA. And I think one of the really famous old-time copywriters like Bruce Barton wrote, it's like a 50-page letter, and it's a masterpiece. It's a work of art. So anyway, Ascension marketing is how I learn. The big tickets they're very different from selling mid tickets to small tickets. So because you're usually doing webinars or you're doing phones, right?
Yeah.
Rodrigo?
No, just it's interesting to get your point of view on that. And I really, like I said, one of the foundations for what I do and what I teach, I'm using 2020 before the coronavirus thing, but especially during now to bring all this stuff that I've learned over the past 10 years and I've identified as being the most efficient and evergreen way to get results. And one of those is webinars. So I went all in and studied like crazy all the webinar stuff, and Fernando was as well. And like I said, I've talked about webinars since 2014 here in Brazil. I have an interview that I did in 2016 that is one of the big platforms here. The president of that platform, the founder, asked me, what would you do if you started again? I said, I would do webinars. And over the past few years, people have been neglecting webinars here in Brazil because they say it doesn't work. Yeah, and I tell them it doesn't work because you don't know how to do it right.
Yeah.
And then now in 2020 and moving forward, people are starting to consider webinars again for high ticket sales. And it's something that I said, look, it's been working for decades and you just don't know how to do it right. So one of the other things that people don't know how to do here are tripwire funnels or tripwire offers.
We are going to talk about these later. So
yeah, so I'll keep that for later. But it's one of the things that people, whenever I have a conversation, I tell them, look, I've been doing tripwire funnels successfully for 5-6 years already.
Interesting.
And then they say, well, why doesn't it work in Brazil? I said, because you don't do it properly. You don't understand the psychology. You don't understand the strategy. You don't understand what it's for. It's not just offering something cheap. You have to understand where it fits within your strategy. And that's why it doesn't work for you. So that's one of the things.
Well, those are great points, especially what you said about webinars, because you're right. People don't know how to do it. It's a specific set of knowledge. It's a specialized knowledge. It's a specialized skill, right? I think it comes more naturally. I believe it's learnable. I believe anyone can learn it, but
it's a framework.
But you got to understand what you said, and it's a whole specialized knowledge. And so, yeah.
But that's with everything. Like if you get a framework and you understand it, that's when you get the results. Like you said, cookie cutter. So one of the things that I really admire about Russell, for example, is that he's able to take all these concepts from years and years ago and from multiple people, and he puts that into his own framework that's easy to understand and easy to follow. So in a simple doodle or design or drawing, he can explain something extremely complex for you to understand why it works, how it works, and how to put it together. So that's one of the things that I've adopted for myself and Fernando as well. And I think that's what makes the biggest difference for people, is because when you understand the framework and you understand what you're doing and exactly in what order, then it's easier to learn and to implement that successfully. But you have to understand the fundamentals and the basics of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're right. Russell really does this puts a lot of energy and effort into that, to simplifying stuff.
Okay. And that's the most difficult. Yeah, that's the most difficult. I tell everybody it's easy to be complex and complicate anything. It's very difficult to simplify the most complex concepts so that you can understand. That's what's really difficult.
Como ele descobre exatamente o que os clientes estão interessados em comprar, o jeito que ele faz pesquisa.
So basically what he wants to understand is what is your product research method? So how do you research what information people actually are interested in buying? How do you know what will be a good product, something that has a demand that people want to consume?
Well, so originally, when I bought that book in 1978 by Ben Suarez, he had a research method, and he would actually fly in 30 people or 36 people, 3 groups of 12, and he'd give them $100. They could buy 1 of 12 products, or they could walk with $100. That's how I did his product research. Now, I never did it that way, but I should actually. That's the although you could do it on Zoom nowadays. But that's like the ultimate research, because they either buy 1 of these 12 products or they walk with the money. They don't know the product doesn't exist yet. It's a focus group, right? But what I did was 12 product surveys, and that's what I've always done. So I give people, which of these 12 products you most likely buy in the next 30 days. And I give people a choice of 12 products. And it's not 100%. It's not definitive, because if you know anything about surveys, there's survey error is proved by the last election in the United States. But by the same token, if you have a product that you're thinking, okay, this is my winner, this is one I want to market, but you did a 12 product survey and it gets 0 votes, 1 vote, which is not uncommon at all. It's not uncommon at all. I mean, you better go back and really check your facts. You better go back to your research with your customers, right? You better dig some more, or at least launch the minimum viable version of that product, because you really got to wonder about whether that you hit that one on the nail or not.
Is there a reason for doing 12 instead of less, like 4 or 3?
Yeah, so Ben, when he originally found out that 1 out of 7 products are based on his research, and I think other statistics pretty much confirm, about 1 out of 7, 1 out of 10 products is a winner. For Ben, it was 1 out of 7. And so he said, but, you know, I like to put the odds in my favor.
So I'll put 12, and then maybe I might get 2.
Do 12.
Okay, got it.
That's why he did it that way, right?
Got it.
Plus, he has a director of research. I mean, he has now I don't know what he has now, but for many years he had 600 employees, and so in Canton, Ohio. And so, he had a director of research I talked to once on the phone, and that's all the guy did was these focus groups and all of this stuff. And he did it with the statistical significance, all of that.
Got it.
They used Likert scales and all this sophisticated stuff. But I mean, they were constantly doing these research groups. I mean, it's like, that's just part of their way they run their businesses, nonstop research groups.
Okay. So after the research, let's talk something about copywriting. And Marlon, how do you create pergunta para ele, Rodrigo, como ele cria uma oferta irresistível? Se é só o produto, o preço, ou se tem algo a mais?
So this is a topic that I'm really fond of. I've become really immersed in researching, and I have a training on this. How do you create what you consider an irresistible offer? So is it just price point bonuses? Is there anything that is a method for you? Is it more feeling? How do you get to what you consider and what you know is an actual irresistible offer that people want to buy?
Well, so I'm in a mastermind with Joe Vitale, great guy from this movie, The Secret, right? So we had our mastermind last night, and Joe was telling a story about a seminar that he marketed once. And they launched the seminar, the promo for it, and they didn't sell one. So he made that seminar free, and he ended up having 30,000 people attend on the internet version of it, right? But he couldn't sell it. So you don't always hit the offer, right? Your offer is not always irresistible. You don't always have a mafia offer. Anybody that says they do and they hit 100% either doesn't launch very often, or they're not telling you the truth, right? It's Michael Masterson, his book, Ready, Fire, Aim. Michael's built, his first business with his partners in was 100 million. And then when he started as a consultant for Agora, they were at 8. Now they're at close to $1 billion or $1 billion. Pretty much knows his stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And he says, we can't guess. We don't know which product's a winner. We don't know, right? We know 1 out of 10 will be a big winner. We know a bunch of the others some of the others will be really good sellers. A few of them will be dogs, right? And so you don't always know. You don't know. You don't know till you launch it. But there's certain, but let's come back to what is the offer. And it's an interesting thing. And actually, everybody will tell you, well, you know, like list, offer, copy. So offer is like the second most important thing next to the list. Any marketer will tell you that. But then when you ask them what's the offer, every marketer has a different definition of the offer. That's what's hysterical about it. Everybody agrees it's extremely important. No two people have the same definition of the offer. And I always had heard, you know, your price point, product configuration, bonuses, guarantee. That's your offer. Payment terms. That's your offer, right? And then few months, maybe 6 months ago, I was reading something I think is about fundraising. Well, they don't have a guarantee. They don't have bonuses. They don't have most of those things, but they still consider the offer as the second most important thing. Well, how can you consider the offer the second most important thing? You don't have a guarantee. You don't have freaking bonuses. You don't have a price point. You don't have a payment plan. But come to find, in that perspective, the offer actually even transcends all of those more mechanical things. The offer is really like, what are you offering? It's the guts of it. It's the core of it, the core benefit, right? So somebody donating to an organization, the offer may be that they're going to get their name on the Wall of Fame. The offer may be that you send in money and you're going to be in a VIP thing. The offer may be that you send in money and you will get updates on who's benefiting from your money and photos. And so that may be the offer, right? And so the core of the offer is, what are people really exchanging their money for? The intangible, the benefit. That's the core of the offer. And then, but that doesn't mean, now I learned from Bob Serling copywriting, a lot of the fine points of copywriting originally, just from his book. Bob wrote for the company I was writing for sold Bob's products, but I didn't really get to talk to Bob, but they had his book on copywriting. I learned so much from it at the time. And Bob classified the offer as a way most other people don't. My light's a little bright here. Let me turn it down just a tad. There we go. So Bob said the offer was the big promise, the reason to believe, and the bonuses. That's how he described it. An immense promise, the reason to believe you can deliver on that promise, and the bonuses. That's what Bob considered the core of the offer. Other people, and then like TJ Rowleader, who's in the biz op market, considers the offer really just the whole package that they're getting, like the whole big picture, right? So everyone defines the offer differently, and you do everything you can think, okay, this is my hypothesis about what the customer is going to crawl over broken glass to get. But it's a hypothesis you test in the marketplace, right? Because you don't know. And so I think great marketers test a lot of hypotheses. I think, but it's easy to not do that. It's easy to just go, okay, well, I know what they want. We'll just roll this out and not do much testing of your ideas of a hypothesis, or even try to come up, what's the most exciting idea. So I learned a new one the other day that might bring some light on it, though. Maybe what's at the core of the offer? What's at the core of an irresistible offer? What's at the very core of it? So there's a guy on YouTube named Kyle Milligan. Kyle used to be a writer for Agora, and in 2 years, he became from nothing to one of their or highly, highly successful Agora copywriter. Now he's on his own. He does a YouTube channel and so forth. And he analyzes every sales letter that's a front-end promotion as new, easy, safe, big. He calls it NESB, new, easy, safe, big. And he says, if you really analyze the offers, at least in the Agora world, that sell, they have 4 components. New is something new, something arresting, because people are addicted to new. Easy or faster, easy. Everyone has an alter ego, so the alter ego of easy is fast. And he's like, if you study successful offers, there's usually some component in it where the customer feels like they really get a fast payoff, which everybody is logical. You spend your money, you want to get gratification now, not later, right? Or easy, because the easier it is, the more certain you feel you're going to get that payoff. The harder it is, the more uncertain you're going to get the payoff, which lowers the value, the expectant payoff. If you know anything about game theory, there's a thing called expectancy of a payoff, right? And then safe, alter ego of safe is predictable. Is this going to be a lot of risk? Because again, if it's going to be a lot of risk, my expected payoff goes down. Maybe I'll get it, maybe I won't. I'm putting money out here. I'm taking a risk here of time, of energy, of money, of ego. Or do I have a predictable result? Meaning I got a lot higher likelihood of the payoff, expectancy of a payoff. And then the last thing is big. So this all goes back to game theory. If you know anything about game theory, this all goes back to game theory. And the payoff, big. How big is the payoff? So you're going to put out money. You're going to put out time. You're going to put out energy. What do I get in return for it? So you usually say big, NSBE. It's a new way to look at the underpinnings of the offer beyond bonuses, beyond the price, beyond the payment terms, beyond the guarantee.
Yeah, it's essentially making the value seem way higher than the price that you're actually shelling out for that product.
And it's fascinating because he analyzes sales letters in extreme detail, and there are so many little nuances that hit on New Easy Safe Big or violate New Easy Safe Big. It's really it's a fascinating thing. Well, anyway, it's maybe a new light on the offer on what makes something irresistible to people.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Fernando, any other questions, or is your mind going crazy with what Marlon just said?
Ok. Vamos lá. Eu deixei anotado algumas aqui. Você tinha falado para ele sobre Tripwire. Pergunta para ele, ele tem muitas ofertas de $1, ofertas muito baratas. Como é a estratégia dele para transformar um cliente de ticket baixo para um cliente de médio ou ticket mais alto?
So Marlon, now we're getting into that Tripwire discussion. Fernando basically asked me how does that work, and this is going to be an interesting discussion for me with you. I'll tell you my point of view first, and then you can obviously correct me in whatever way that you want.
it's just viewpoints.
The way that I see it is when people try to run Tripwire offers in Brazil, they understand it as it's something cheap, so it's going to sell easy. And then they try to make money off that Tripwire offer and sell something as an immediate upsell. And the way I see it, the way I learned it, the way I've analyzed it is it works because it indoctrinates the person into understanding that they're going to get a lot of value from you at a low price point. So their expectancy for the next logical offer is, if this was really good at this price point, then the next one is going to be even better. So I'm going to shell out for that. And that's the way that psychology for me of the Tripwire works. So it's a way to create an indoctrination of what they can expect from you. And so for acquisition, it's one of the best ways that you can do it. And you don't really see or expect return on that acquisition. You expect a return on the back end. So that's a big difference between the American marketplace, if we can call it that, and the Brazilian marketplace is people still don't view the importance of LTV and back end versus front end and what the strategy is for both of those. So people still are crazy about trying to make money off the front end. They only have one product. They only try to make money off of that. And then they don't understand that the money is in the back end. is in other offers that you make to that person. The value is in the consumer and the client that you've acquired. So in your point of view, how do you transform a $1 offer into a mid-ticket or a high-ticket conversion the way you do it? Does that make sense, anything I said, or not?
Yeah, I don't think I have the perfect system for that. My method is again, I sell low tickets and mid tickets. And I'll tell you what I do, and it's not by theory the best, but I don't know. People are strange. Like, so theoretically, they buy product A. Now they're perfectly positioned to buy product B. I send them an email. I say, listen, you just bought product A. Your next step is to buy product B. Here's why you need product B. But it makes all sense. You got to buy this. And then they don't buy it. And you're like, and now you're pissed off. And you're like, I just told you, you buy product. I put all this effort into making product B. I wrote these freaking emails from product B. You're not buying product B. What is wrong with you? I'm just sending you something else. Boom. I sent them some other crazy thing I created, something totally different. Oh, boom. They buy it. They love it. Money's coming in from your list. You're like, holy crap, this is great. I'm loving marketing. Oh my God, I love my life. And you're like, you're still pissing me off you didn't buy product B. It was the perfect, logical next freaking step. It was what you needed. And you're a don't wanter. You don't want it. Like, say, I have a saying, you only sell a dead duck once, but sometimes you feel like picking up the dead duck, going to the door, knocking on the door, they open up, you take the dead duck. Didn't you know you're supposed to next product B? You didn't buy it. So what I have is a lot of products, and I have them in a sequence, and I have a whole model. I mean, they're within my model of creating and selling. I teach a model called creating income like layers of a cake. So you stack income like layers of a cake. I have different products that I sell, encompassing my model, which was originally Amazing Form, which is your hungry target market, your HPO, your hot product offer. You have your killer sales letter. You have your targeted media. You have your website marketing system. You have your back end. So everything falls within those things, but they don't buy it or ascend as neatly and cleanly as they should. They buy the front end product. I have the next step, $100, $200. Ascend. No, listen. No, dog, listen. I said ascend. You go, you buy the next step. The next step, $100. You go and buy it. Is the next. Don't you get it? And they're like, Marlon, I am a don't wanter. I don't want it. All right. Well, how about this? Oh my God, that's great. I'll buy that. All right. Well, here you go. Give me your freaking credit card and buy this. So they don't. I wish people ascended on one time I put together the perfect ascension ladder. You buy this, you go here on this step and you ascend, and you go here and you go here and you go. It was the perfect ascension ladder. The only problem was they didn't ascend. They didn't want it. They didn't want my ascension ladder. I still don't get it. I'm still like, it still pisses me off, but it still annoys me. I'm like, do you not recognize that this is like the perfect ascension ladder? This is where you need to be. This is where now I'm not arguing against ascension. Ascension is the beautiful thing, right? And you're right, indoctrinating. Maybe some people are better at ascension. I'm trying to get my light here correct. But unfortunately, my customers don't always ascend the way I want them to ascend. They'll buy more, and my customers buy a lot of stuff. Over time, I'll typically go in my customers' accounts, they own 20 or 30 products, right? But then I have like the perfect product for them. Like right now, my best product currently is called Take the Lid Off Your Income. It's got $100, $200, $500 price point. It's a great product. It's probably my best product I've ever done, right? I put a lot into it, but I really got, it's gorgeous, like PowerPoint slides. I love the product, right? But like, ain't no matter what I do, most people aren't going to buy it. Like they just don't like the idea, the offer, what it is. It wasn't. They don't think it's new. They don't think it's easy enough. They think there's too much risk, or they don't think the payoff is big enough. I don't know which, right? I don't know which. So I just go on and sell them other stuff. I sell them, you know, at some point I sell them what they want to buy within my model and within what I believe in. I don't sell them crap that I don't believe in. I don't sell them stuff not within my model. But yeah, it's not the politically correct marketing answer. And I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of high and mighty marketers who like to judge other marketers about,
it's good to hear the truth.
Blah, blah, you know, blah, blah, blah. But anyway,
do you have time for just 2 more questions? Quick questions?
Let's hear it.
Yeah. Rodrigo, pergunta para ele que aqui no Brasil a gente não tem esse modelo de newsletter semanal, de mandar por e-mail e tal. Pouquíssima gente faz. Rapidamente, como funciona isso? Como ele faz isso ser lucrativo? Eu assinei a newsletter dele essa semana.
Fernando's saying that he signed up for your newsletter this week, and it's a model that we don't really use here in Brazil yet. Weekly newsletter, paid newsletters. How does that work? How do you make that lucrative? Is there some sort of, well, there obviously is a framework. If you could share that with us, any tips or ideas of how to make that work?
Yeah. So, and by the way, on that other question, the ideal thing is you have this framework like Russell Brunson and others talk about, and every product's really the framework, but delivered with different, you know, you can get an ebook on it, you can get a webinar on it, you can get a coaching program 6 weeks on it, you can get a coaching program for a year, but it's also the one same framework. If you can get people to buy that way, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful because you don't have to do a lot of work then. One framework. It's a hard sell for my customer. Like they want something new. They're like, yeah, I bought the framework. I bought the ebook. I don't want 6 week on it. Okay. So, and then what was your other question?
About newsletters.
The newsletter. Well, you know, so here's the deal. I wrote it free for many years, right? I wrote it free for many years. But the point in time just came to charge for it. Because I felt people weren't reading it. I felt people weren't paying attention to it. And I like doing it for free. But, you know, I'm not the perfect button down marketer. Like talk to Perry Marshall or someone who's like a perfect button down structured marketer. I'm like more of an emotional sometimes. And I'm not saying it's right, just how I am. Like, sometimes maybe your customers will piss you off, you know, and it's not right, but like, I'm like, if you aren't, but there is a point to it. Like if you aren't going to respect it, my feeling is this, if somebody's not respecting or valuing something, you're not charging enough. If it's free and it's not accomplishing what you want and they're not respecting it, then you got to charge for it. If you're charging for it and they're not respecting it, you got to charge more for it.
Got it. That's a great point of view. I used to say that money buys you attention. So people pay to give you their attention. That's why you charge. You charge them so that they can give you their attention. Because if they pay, they're going to be invested in it. So they're going to want to focus on what their money was.
Yeah, I mean, one reason I do is I'm a writer, so I like to stay in the habit of writing. So that's why I write weekly. Because if I don't do that, I just won't write. And then one day you wake up and you're like, oh, I need to do a sales letter, and you haven't written in 3 months, and you're like, holy crap, I'm out of practice. I forgot where the keys are on the keyboard, right? So part of it's for me, but then it's for the customers. And then I realize, well, you know, I need to charge. It also is a good selling point for affiliates because you can add in recurring billing and, you know.
Rodrigo, vou fazer a última, depois se você quiser, você fica à vontade. Essa semana, ele falou que um parceiro dele fez, acho que aproximadamente $50 mil, rodando um webinário como afiliado por um produto chamado Kibo Code. Foi um lançamento da ClickBank que fez 18 milhões de dólares. E eu queria saber mais ou menos como funciona, como um afiliado pode rodar um webinário para um lançamento. Ele vai lembrar se você falar do Kibo Code.
So Fernando was asking about a launch, I believe it's called Kibble Code. He wants to know about how can affiliates use webinars to do launches or to make sales. I've talked about this a lot in my training about webinars, where I say that webinars are the best way for you to sell because you can create that know, like, trust factor within 90 minutes, 60 minutes if you do it well. And as an affiliate, in my point of view, you're just doing the same thing, but instead of it being your own offer, you just create and present the offer that somebody else is selling. And it just becomes a recommendation. So in your point of view, for that specific launch that was very successful, or how can somebody use webinars to make sales as an affiliate?
Well, I think you're smart to do webinars. If you're really good at them, you're right. It's a great, you can sell a lot higher dollar tickets from them. So webinars are a beautiful thing if it's your, if you can do them, you acquire that skill set and it's your jam, you know. I'll tell you, so I don't use webinars a lot because it's really not my, for various reasons, it's not my, I mean, like my customers would just rather read what I write because I train them that way, right? But having said that, there's one method that's used to be done all the time in product launches, and they're not doing it so much now, but it's probably a mistake. And that is, used to be you always had a webinar at the open of your launch. And the reason is because you could get affiliates to drive people to that webinar. And it gave affiliates the reason to promote on day one. Because if you don't do that, you got to have a 48-hour fast start cash contest for affiliates. And you'd kind of rather have them promote the webinar for a commission than have to come up with all this extra cash for the day one or two to get them to promote. And so it gives the affiliates a reason to promote. You get them on the webinar, and then on the webinar, you offer a small discount is typically what's done. You tell, hey, here's the product it's launching. Here's the benefits. Here's what it'll do for you. Here's the proof it'll work. And because you're on today, we have a discount for you that's only good for the next hour. So it's a way to drive those fast opening sales, but it's also a way to get affiliates to promote that launch. Now, the other way webinars are obviously used is post-launch. And the people that make the most money from launches, they really make most of their money on the post-launch webinar. But that's a real skill set. Like a post-launch webinar can make a lot of money, but people think it's a guaranteed thing. They think, oh, I did a launch, I put them on a webinar, and I'm going to make $30, $40, $50,000. No, you're not unless you're really good at it. You'll be really good at that webinar, right? But if you're really good at it, then you have a real advantage in launching because you don't need money from the launch. You know you can kill it on your webinar. Really, but that's not most people. Most people do not struggle on that post-launch webinar because webinar selling is a very unique set of skills.
Got it.
Enough?
Fernando, any more questions?
No, it's perfect for me. And you?
Yeah, I have just one last one, Marlon, before we finish up. It's a question I like to ask a lot of people that I interview in my podcast. It's just a way to reflect on everything that's gone by until today. Maybe gives you an answer you've never thought about. If you were to start over again, what would be the biggest nugget or the biggest pearl of wisdom that changed everything for you that you would have wanted to have known back then, that you think would have made a huge difference in your life until now?
I'm never good at these kind of questions because I live, because I know no one has perfect knowledge. So, there's things I wish I knew, like, I wish I knew that the affiliates would go to affiliate platforms, but even if I knew that, I'm not sure it would have changed anything I did, because given a set of circumstances, you just, I probably the one thing, but again, like I would know it, but I probably wouldn't change what I did. I wish it would be nice to have known that how important speaking at events played in my career on the one hand, but on the other hand, it wouldn't change decisions. My mom had Alzheimer's. I got off the road because of that, because I had demands. My dad had like 3 cancers and all these other problems and stuff. I really couldn't travel on the road. Older in life, I like probably don't travel I don't have bad health issues, but it's like I eat a strict diet, and it's hard to do that in hotels and airports. So it wouldn't change it. It would have been nice to know, but I don't know. I could have changed stuff.
Do you think the part of doing more speaking, is it more about being out there, creating more authority, getting your name out there more, having partnerships that come from speaking, or is it more just because of how much you enjoyed it or how lucrative it was or is?
No, it's about Dan Kennedy says the best positioning in the market is a celebrity authority, both an authority and a celebrity. And when you speak at events, you get the advantage of both of those. It's also very magnetic to affiliates. Affiliates will tend to promote people they hear speak because, again, they're a celebrity and they're authority, right? Your conversions are a lot higher when you're a speaker because, again, you're a celebrity and authority. When you're not speaking at events, it's very hard to stand out versus anyone else. You just kind of blend in a lot more, right? And so, I mean, at a higher level, beginners, but at a higher level, if you can hold your own events or speak at other people's events, again, the celebrity authority, you can't beat the celebrity and the authority of it, and it attracts a lot of affiliates, all of the above. Plus, you'll find out your best customers heard you speak in person.
And
I mean, like across the board, your best buyers over a long period of time are people you met in person, so be nice to them.
Do you see books having any sort of similar effect? I believe that books are a great way to get you that celebrity authority status as well.
Yeah, I asked Joe this question because he's written like 50 books. He just published 2 new books, in fact. He's always publishing books, right?
Yeah.
I haven't published any books. I mean, just that I sell on Amazon or anything, right? I publish books, but not really. And so I can't speak from personal experience. I just know that, but it's a different world. Like, you have to adapt to this changing world. Like in the old days, you had a book and wow, it was really a big deal. And nowadays anyone can publish a book on Kindle. So I don't know that it's the same deal. The answer to that question is a really good question. And I honest to God don't know. I mean, in the old days, you had a book, man, that was your ticket. It was one of the key pieces of authority, having a book, right? But now, like, my gosh, you go in marketing and look at the books on Kindle. I don't even know any of the people.
Here in Brazil, there's still a wave now of people publishing books. So a lot of the guys that are really big on social media, have a lot of followers. It's become a business to have your published books. So Fernando has his own there.
Nice.
Yeah. I was one of the first people to bring the book funnel here to Brazil and adapt it successfully. So I've been doing a lot of consulting and client work.
How's that working?
Really well, actually, because nobody understands how to transform a book into a successful acquisition funnel.
But see, that's a different thing. That's a different thing than doing it for celebrity and authority.
But they have it as a celebrity and authority. So they start out as having it for that reason. And then I tell them that, look, besides just having it as a celebrity authority option, asset, whatever, you can use it also as a powerful acquisition tool for people to come into your world. So there are people that have their books, they sell them at physical bookstores, they sell them on Amazon, whatever. But I tell them, look, if you transform this into an acquisition funnel, it's already selling, but you can make them come into your world and increase their relationship and make it just so much bigger than what they would just doing it, buying that book in the bookstore. So I've had one of the first ones that I did at a larger scale. The guy had a book, he published it, it sold 50,000 copies, and then it stopped selling because they did the whole launch strategy here. There's a publisher that's focused on selling them, on creating the books, selling them, and getting them into the bestsellers list. And then he didn't believe in his book anymore. It's on hypnosis, and it was just a book that I read that it changed my mindset. It changed the way I see a bunch of things in my own life. And I said, look, this book is amazing. You have to sell it. So I created the book funnel for him. And he had the book, and he had a $12,000 hypnosis training formation program that he made people go through, and then they could become a certified hypnosis therapist. That's all he had. So I basically put in the whole funnel. I created digital products to complement the funnel, a 21-day challenge that we sold on the website. And nice. His acquisition for that $12,000 training certification program was around $2,000 to $3,000. Sales on the phone, sales team, all that stuff, ads. And I told him, when you put it in this way, you're going to be able to get a $5 acquisition cost, because they're going to come through the book. They're going to send, they're going to go.
But you can convert 100% of the $12,000, 100% of them. They read the book, and after they've read the book, all they can do is bark like a dog, because the book hypnotizes them. And then they get the follow-up email. Are you tired of barking like a dog? Why are $12,000 back in?
That's kind of what happened. So I created the whole journey. So I figured out, okay, if they read the book, they're going to want more. The next step is I learned that hypnosis is good. I want to do it for me. And then they went through a 21-day self-hypnosis program. And then they figured out, okay, this is really good for me. I want to do this for somebody in my family, somebody I know in my hometown. I want to do this for a living. Mm-hmm. So then people went and ascended through the whole thing, and the acquisition was $5. So that's the cost that we spent on ads to convert a book. And then one of the things that I learned through doing this whole process was the free plus shipping method in Brazil doesn't work because of our culture. You have to switch it around. So you have to do paid plus free shipping. And that was one of the biggest insights I had because of our culture. And Fernando ran the free plus shipping thing, and he got the same problem I got, which is people started to see that offer and say, look, that's bullshit.
For Brazilian people, free is free. Free is free. No charge, nothing. Yeah, you can charge for shipping and handling.
You can't try and say,
wow.
We had to switch it around. So we'd say, you pay for the book and I'll pay for shipping, because shipping is more expensive here. So once we switched that around, I literally just made that switch in the words. It was free book plus shipping. I switched it to paid book plus free shipping, and the conversions stayed the same, but my complaints on ads and everything just dropped to zero.
Nice.
And that was something that I had to learn, just running it, like we said, testing it in the marketplace. And that's how it works. So that's what we did for that first funnel. And now a bunch of authors that have launched their books as a celebrity authority asset, I'm trying to get them to see, look, yes, it's a great asset, but if you use it as an acquisition asset, then it just changes the whole thing for your business. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to work on here in Brazil, because people still don't see it that way. So
I don't know. And it's different in Brazil. I had a friend here named Bart Baggett who worked in he had a funnel for authors, but he struggled in that market. The author market in the U.S., it wasn't, I don't know, they didn't convert real well, right?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I'm
I don't know why.
But it works really well if you have a celebrity author. So a guy that has a lot of followers, a guy that has a lot of traffic, that works really well, because you just get that traffic and you just direct it to a funnel that can convert.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
I've tried it with self-published authors, which are people that don't have much audience, but the offer was really good and it sold the same way. So I'm a true believer.
Okay, that makes sense.
Offer is king. Offer is king, and the way that I present the funnel, it really helps. So I'm confident that I can sell pretty much any book using that strategy. it works as
Interesting.
well. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
I like that.
let's go,
Great.
Rodrigo.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks a lot for your time, Marlon. It was a huge pleasure getting to talk to you. Honor
Pleasure
and
to meet
respect
you,
all your work.
Rodrigo. Fernando, good to see you again.
Good to see
Stay
you.
well.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
you too.
Stay well.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Mr. Marlon. It's a big pleasure.
You all had haircuts. You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you got a
That's
haircut? I
great.
don't know. I can't even order clippers here.
And
I'm like all bushy and stuff.
Yeah.
You can't order clippers here. They're sold out everywhere.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm
But
going
I'm like
crazy.
getting ready to get scissors.
The next
Yeah.
time I want to buy a hat like you is really fun.
No. This is what happens, you know, when you're in the words of Red Skelton in the old days, when your parking alley becomes a parking lot.
Okay.
You get a hat, right?
Thank you, Mr.
So,
Marlon.
gentlemen, it's a
I really like
pleasure.
you. See you, man.
Good success to you in
You
Brazil.
too. You too.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you.